Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and Cinema Vibes. What would you do if the person you saved from death turned out to be the most dangerous man alive? In today's video, we're going to explore a powerful romantic crime drama story that blends love, betrayal, hidden identity, and emotional twists in a very intense way. This is not just a simple love story, but a journey where fate connects two completely different people and forces them into a situation that changes their lives forever. On one side, there is a kind-hearted young woman who lives a simple and peaceful life. She believes in helping others, even when she has very little for herself. Life has not been easy for her, but she never lets hardship turn her heart cold. On the other side, there is a mysterious man whose world is completely different. He is surrounded by danger, power, and secrets that he can never openly reveal. To everyone around him, he looks like an ordinary successful man, but in reality, his life is tied to a hidden and dangerous truth. Their paths cross on a stormy night, an encounter that seems small at first, but slowly becomes the turning point of their entire destiny. What begins as a simple act of saving a life slowly pulls them into a situation neither of them expected. At first, there is distance, confusion, and no trust between them. They are complete opposites, coming from worlds that can never easily mix. But fate has other plans. A forced situation brings them together in a contract relationship that starts without emotions, without love, and without any promise of the future. Yet as time passes, living under the same circumstances begins to change everything. The cold walls between them slowly start breaking, and emotions they never planned for begin to grow in silence. However, love in their world is never simple. Secrets start to rise, trust begins to shake, and danger slowly moves closer from the shadows. The woman starts feeling that the man she is getting closer to is hiding something very big. At the same time, the man is trapped between his hidden identity and the growing feelings he never expected to feel for someone like her. What follows is a journey filled with emotional conflict, unexpected twists, painful truths, and moments where love is tested against reality. Every step forward brings them closer, but also pushes them toward a truth that could either bind them forever or destroy everything between them. So stay tuned, because in the next part, we will start the full story from the very beginning, where everything started and where destiny silently began writing a love story filled with danger, emotion, and hidden darkness. The city was drowning in heavy rain that night. Dark clouds covered the sky like a thick blanket, and the streets were almost empty except for the sound of thunder and water hitting the ground. Streetlights flickered weakly, struggling against the storm, while most people had already taken shelter in their homes. It felt like a night where something important was about to happen, something that would change lives forever. In a small, quiet part of the city, a young woman named Sophia Carter was finishing her late shift at the hospital. She was a nurse, known among her colleagues for her gentle nature and dedication. Sophia was not someone who lived a luxurious life. She came from a modest background and had learned early in life that kindness does not require wealth. Even after long, exhausting shifts, she always found strength in helping others. For her, saving a life was more valuable than anything else. As she stepped outside the hospital, the cold wind hit her face. She pulled her thin coat closer and looked at the empty road ahead. Public transport was almost unavailable at that hour due to the storm, but she had no choice but to walk toward the bus stop a few blocks away. The rain was getting heavier with every passing minute, making it difficult to see clearly. While walking through a dimly lit street, something unusual caught her attention. At first, she thought it was just a shadow or debris from the storm. But as she moved closer, her heart skipped a beat. A man was lying on the roadside, completely unconscious and soaked in rain. His clothes were torn in some places, and there were visible injuries on his body. It was clear that he had been badly hurt. Sophia immediately rushed toward him without a second thought. She knelt beside him, checking his pulse and breathing. He was alive, but weak, dangerously weak. The cold rain was making his condition worse, and if he stayed there any longer, he might not survive the night. "Hey, can you hear me?" She called softly, trying to wake him up, but there was no response. For a moment, fear crossed her mind. The street was empty, and she had no idea who this man was or what had happened to him. But leaving him, there was not an option for her. Her instincts as a nurse took over her hesitation. She quickly made a decision that would unknowingly change her entire life. With great effort, she managed to support his body and somehow got him into a nearby taxi she had called an urgency. The driver hesitated at first seeing the injured man, but Sophia convinced him that it was an emergency. They rushed toward the hospital where she worked. During the entire ride, Sophia kept checking his condition. His face was partially covered by wet hair, making it hard to see him clearly. Still, there was something unusual about him. Even in his unconscious state, he carried a presence, strong, silent, and mysterious. He didn't look like an ordinary man. But at that moment, Sophia had no time to think about who he was. Saving his life was her only priority. At the hospital, everything became chaotic for a few minutes. Nurses and doctors quickly took over as soon as they saw the condition of the patient. Sophia helped them in every possible way, assisting in emergency treatment. His injuries were serious, but not fatal if treated on time. After several tense minutes, his condition finally started to stabilize. He was moved into a private recovery room for observation. Sophia stood outside the room for a moment, breathing heavily after everything that had happened. She felt exhausted, but at the same time, she felt relieved that he had survived. Later that night, when things had calmed down, she entered the room again. The man was still unconscious, lying peacefully on the hospital bed. Now that she could see him properly, she noticed something different. His features were sharp, his face calm, yet powerful, and there was an unusual aura around him that made him stand out from ordinary people. But she still didn't know one thing. This man she had saved from death was not just an ordinary stranger. Far away from that hospital room, hidden in the shadows of a dangerous world, his name was already feared. His real identity was buried deep under secrets, betrayal, and power struggles that Sophia could never imagine at that moment. And unknowingly, by saving him, she had stepped into a world she was never meant to enter. A world that would soon change her life completely. The hospital was unusually quiet after midnight. Most of the staff had already gone, and only a few emergency nurses were still on duty. Outside, the storm had started to slow down, but the sky remained dark and heavy, as if it was refusing to bring peace to the night. Inside a private recovery room, the injured man lay still on the hospital bed. Machines softly beeped beside him, showing that his condition was now stable. Sophia Carter stood near the door, watching him carefully. Even though he was safe now, something about him kept her mind restless. She had saved many patients before, but this case felt different. There was something unusual about him, something she couldn't explain. Hours passed. Finally, near early morning, his fingers moved slightly. Sophia immediately noticed it. She quickly stepped closer, her heartbeat rising with anticipation. Slowly, the man's eyes began to open. At first, everything was blurry for him. The bright hospital lights made him squint, and his expression showed confusion mixed with pain. "Where am I?" he muttered weakly. Sophia leaned forward slightly, trying to calm him. "You're in a hospital. You were injured and found unconscious on the roadside. I brought you here." For a moment, silence filled the room. The man slowly turned his head, observing his surroundings. Even in his weak condition, there was something sharp in his gaze, an awareness that didn't belong to an ordinary person. "You saved me?" he asked, his voice still rough. "Yes," Sophia replied calmly. "But you need rest. You were seriously injured." The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he seemed lost in thought, as if trying to recall something important. His expression changed slightly, becoming colder for a moment, but then he quickly hid it. After a few seconds, he spoke again. "My name is Ethan Blake." Sophia nodded slightly, noting it down mentally. "Ethan, all right. Do you remember what happened to you?" A brief silence followed. Ethan's eyes darkened slightly, but he avoided the question. "It's complicated." Sophia could sense that he was hiding something. As a nurse, she had dealt with many patients, and she could easily tell when someone was not telling the full truth. But she didn't push him further. Right now, his health was more important than answers. "Don't worry," she said gently. "You're safe here. No one will harm you." Ethan looked at her for a moment. There was something unfamiliar in his expression, something between suspicion and curiosity. He was not used to trusting people easily, especially strangers. Yet, for some reason, this woman in front of him didn't feel like a threat. "Why did you help me?" he asked after a pause. Sophia slightly smiled. "Because you needed help. That's all." Her answer was simple, but it made Ethan quiet. In his world, nothing was ever done without reason. Every action had a motive. Every kindness had a price. But this woman seemed different. Too simple. Too honest. For the first time in a long while, he didn't know how to respond. Sophia checked his medical chart and adjusted the drip beside him. "You should rest. Your injuries will take time to heal." Before leaving the room, she paused at the door and looked back at him. "Try not to think too much. You're safe now." Then she quietly left. Ethan remained alone in the room. The moment the door closed, his expression changed completely. The weakness in his eyes faded, replaced by sharp focus and cold awareness. He slowly raised his hand and looked at the bandages wrapped around it. "Safe," he repeated softly, almost like he didn't believe the word. Outside that room, the world he belonged to was far from safe. Unknown to Sophia, Ethan Blake was not just an ordinary businessman as he had claimed. His real identity was buried deep in a dangerous world filled with power struggles, betrayal, and enemies who would stop at nothing to find him. The reason he was lying in that hospital bed was not just an accident. It was a consequence of a betrayal that had nearly cost him his life. But right now, revealing the truth was not an option, because someone like him could never trust easily, and someone like her should never be involved in his world. Yet fate had already crossed their paths. That night, as Ethan lay back in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling, one thought quietly formed in his mind. This woman, Sophia Carter, was not ordinary either, and somehow she had just become a part of something much bigger than she realized. Morning light slowly replaced the darkness of the stormy night. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city fresh and silent, as if nothing had happened. Inside the hospital, life continued as usual. Doctors moving between wards, nurses attending patients, and the soft noise of medical equipment filling the corridors. But in one corner of the hospital, something unusual was still unfolding. Ethan Blake remained in the private recovery room, resting under observation. His injuries were still painful, but his condition had improved slightly. Yet his mind was far from resting. He lay there quietly, eyes open, analyzing everything around him: the room layout, the security, the staff movement. It was a habit he couldn't turn off. Sophia Carter entered the room after completing her morning rounds. She was holding a medical file and a small tray with medicines. As soon as she walked in, Ethan's gaze shifted toward her instantly. There was still a guarded expression on his face, as if he was trying to understand her presence. "Good morning," Sophia said softly, placing the tray beside him. "How are you feeling today?" Ethan paused for a moment before replying. "Better than last night." Sophia checked his pulse and noted something in his file. "That's good. Your body is responding well to treatment, but you still need rest for at least a few days." Ethan observed her quietly while she worked. There was no unnecessary noise in her actions, no hesitation. She treated him like any other patient, without fear or judgment. That was something he was not used to. "Are you always this calm around strangers?" he asked suddenly. Sophia looked up slightly, thinking for a moment. If someone is injured, they are not a stranger. They are a patient. Her answer was simple, but it carried a kind of warmth that made Ethan silent again. In his world, people were divided into categories: useful, dangerous, or irrelevant. Compassion was rare. Trust was even rarer. Sophia adjusted his foredrip and continued speaking in a professional tone. "Do you have any family I should contact? Someone who can come and take care of you after discharge." A brief silence followed. Ethan's expression hardened slightly, but only for a second. "No." Sophia noticed the hesitation in his voice, but didn't push further. Instead, She simply nodded. All right. For now, focus on recovery. She turned to leave, but Ethan spoke again. Wait. She stopped and looked back. You're not afraid? He asked. Sophia tilted her head slightly. Afraid of what? Ethan studied her carefully. You found an injured man in the middle of nowhere, brought him to a hospital, and you still don't know who I am. Sophia gave a small, calm smile. If I start being afraid of every unknown situation, I won't be able to do my job. Her answer left him quiet. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room felt strangely calm, but beneath that calmness, something unspoken was slowly forming. A connection, fragile, but real. Over the next few days, Sophia continued to take care of Ethan during her shifts. She changed his dressings, monitored his condition, and ensured he was recovering properly. Ethan, on the other hand, remained mostly silent, observing everything around him. But slowly, something began to change. Whenever Sophia entered the room, Ethan would notice small things. How she spoke gently to other patients, how she never complained even after long shifts, how she treated everyone with equal care. It was unfamiliar to him, but not unimportant. One evening, as Sophia was adjusting his medication, Ethan finally spoke in a lower voice. You work too much. Sophia looked at him briefly while writing notes. That's part of the job. You should rest more, he said. Sophia gave a light smile without looking up. That's ironic coming from a patient who almost died a few days ago. For the first time, a slight change appeared in Ethan's expression. It wasn't exactly a smile, but something close to it. Maybe, he replied quietly. That short exchange created an unexpected silence between them. Not awkward, but different, softer. As days passed, Ethan's condition continued to improve. But something else was also growing silently in the background. A strange awareness. A feeling he couldn't fully define. Sophia, too, began to notice small things about him. Despite his cold and distant behavior, there were moments when he seemed lost in thought, as if carrying a heavy burden he never spoke about. He never asked for sympathy, never complained, never revealed anything about his past. And that mystery made him even more distant, yet strangely intriguing. One evening, after finishing her shift, Sophia stood outside the hospital building, looking at the calm night sky. She didn't notice that Ethan was watching her from the window. For a moment, Ethan's gaze softened slightly. He didn't know why, but something about this woman felt different from everyone he had ever known. And deep inside, without saying it out loud, both of them were slowly stepping into something they didn't fully understand yet. A bond, forming quietly, without trust and without permission from fate. The hospital had slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Days passed, and Ethan Blake's condition continued to improve under Sophia Carter's care. The injuries that once made him helpless were now healing, but something deeper inside him still felt unsettled. It wasn't physical pain anymore. It was the uncertainty of his situation. He was alive, yes, but not free. Outside that hospital room, a world of danger still existed. A world he could not yet return to. Inside the room, Sophia entered as usual with a medical file in her hand. She checked his vitals, adjusted the foredrip, and reviewed his recovery progress. Her movements were calm and professional, as always. There was no unnecessary emotion, no hesitation, just care and responsibility. You're recovering faster than expected, she said while writing notes. Ethan looked at her quietly. How long do I need to stay here? Sophia paused slightly. At least a few more days. Your body still needs time. He leaned slightly against the bed, his expression unreadable. I can't stay here forever. Sophia glanced at him. Everyone needs time to heal. Ethan didn't respond immediately. His eyes shifted toward the window, where sunlight was slowly entering the room. He seemed distant, as if his mind was somewhere far beyond this place. After a moment, he spoke in a low voice. I don't belong here. Sophia looked up from her notes. What do you mean? Ethan didn't answer directly. Instead, he changed the subject. You've done enough for me already. Sophia closed the file gently. As long as you are my patient, it's my responsibility. For a brief moment, Silence filled the room again. But this time, it felt heavier. There was something unspoken between them, something growing but still undefined. That evening, everything changed. Sophia had just finished her shift when she was suddenly called into the hospital administration office. The atmosphere inside was serious. Two senior officials were waiting for her. One of them spoke firmly. "Nurse Carter, we need to talk about the patient you've been treating, the unidentified man in private room 7. Sophia stayed calm. "Yes." The man continued. "We've received inquiries. There are concerns about keeping an unknown individual here without proper identification or documentation." Sophia frowned slightly. "He was critically injured. We couldn't delay treatment." "We understand," the official replied, "but hospital policy requires us to either identify him or prepare for discharge." Sophia remained silent for a moment. She knew this was coming sooner or later. After the meeting, she returned to Ethan's room. He was sitting quietly, staring at the floor. When he noticed her expression, he immediately understood something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked. Sophia hesitated for a moment before speaking. "They want to discharge you soon or identify you." A brief silence followed. Ethan's expression tightened slightly, but he quickly controlled it. "And what do you think?" Sophia looked at him directly. "I think you should leave once you're fully recovered." Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her face carefully. "You still don't know who I am," he said. Sophia nodded slightly. "And maybe I don't need to." That answer surprised him. For someone like him, anonymity was dangerous. In his world, not knowing meant vulnerability. But her words carried something different. Not ignorance, but acceptance without judgment. Ethan slowly looked away. Later that night, the hospital was quiet again. Sophia was finishing paperwork at the nurse's station when a shadow approached from behind. It was Ethan. She looked up, slightly surprised. "You should be resting." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He stood there for a moment, then spoke in a calm but serious tone. "I want to ask you something." Sophia tilted her head slightly. "What is it?" He paused for a second before speaking again. "If I had nothing, no identity, no past, no future, would you still have helped me?" Sophia thought for a moment, then answered honestly, "Yes." That single word created silence between them. Ethan's eyes darkened slightly, not in anger, but in thought. He seemed to be processing something deeply internal. After a long pause, he finally said something unexpected. "I can't go back to where I came from. Not yet." Sophia looked at him carefully. "Why?" But Ethan didn't answer that question. Instead, he made a decision. A dangerous one. A life-changing one. "I need time and safety," he said slowly. "And I can't stay here as a stranger forever." Sophia frowned slightly. "What are you trying to say?" Ethan looked directly at her for the first time with complete seriousness. "Marry me." The words fell into the room like a shockwave. For a moment, Sophia didn't react. She simply stared at him, trying to process what she had just heard. "What?" she finally said. Ethan's expression remained calm, but his eyes were sharp. "It won't be real," he continued. "A contract. Temporary. Just until I can settle my situation." Sophia stepped back slightly, confused and shocked. "You're asking me to marry you just like that?" Ethan nodded once. "It's the only way I can stay protected right now." Silence filled the room again. Sophia looked at him carefully. There was no emotion in his face, no romantic expression, only seriousness. But something about this request felt far bigger than what he was saying. And deep inside, Ethan knew this decision was not just about survival anymore. It was the beginning of something neither of them could control. A bond that started with life was now stepping into something far more dangerous. After the emotional chaos that unfolded between Ethan Blake and Sophia Carter, the story in its deeper phase takes a much darker and more intense turn. The trust that had slowly begun to form between them is now broken, and both characters find themselves trapped in a painful emotional distance. Sophia, who once saw Ethan as a mysterious but caring man, now views him as someone who hid a dangerous truth from her. Even though a part of her heart still remembers his kindness, her mind refuses to accept the reality that the man she married is connected to a violent mafia world. Ethan, on the other hand, is completely torn from within. He knows that revealing his identity was inevitable, but he never imagined it would hurt Sophia this deeply. For the first time in his life, the powerful mafia boss feels powerless. He can control cities, enemies, and dangerous deals, but he cannot control the emotional distance growing between him and the only person he truly cares about. Ethan tries to approach Sophia several times, but she refuses to meet his eyes, let alone listen to his explanation. Every attempt he makes only pushes her further away, deepening the emotional gap between them. Meanwhile, outside their broken relationship, danger begins to rise rapidly. Ethan's enemies, who have been silently observing everything, realize that Sophia has become his biggest weakness. In a mafia world, weakness is something that is always exploited, and now Sophia has unknowingly become the target. A secret group of rival mafia members begins planning to use her as bait to trap Ethan. Their goal is not just revenge, but complete destruction of Ethan Blake's empire. Sophia, unaware of the danger surrounding her, tries to return to her normal life at the hospital. But she begins noticing strange incidents, unknown people watching her, silent threats, and mysterious phone calls that say nothing but her name. At first, she thinks it is just her imagination caused by stress and emotional trauma. However, soon these incidents become more direct and dangerous. One night, while returning home late from work, she notices she is being followed. Panic begins to rise, and for the first time, she realizes that something is seriously wrong. At the same time, Ethan's intelligence network informs him about the threat targeting Sophia. The moment he hears it, everything else becomes meaningless to him. Without wasting a second, he orders his men to increase protection around her, but he knows this is not enough. The enemies are powerful, organized, and already close. Ethan realizes that no matter how strong his protection is, Sophia will never be safe as long as she is connected to him. This realization creates one of the most painful conflicts in Ethan's heart. He is forced to face a truth he never wanted to accept. His love for Sophia has made her a target. For the first time, he starts questioning whether staying close to her is actually destroying her life instead of protecting her. This inner conflict becomes the turning point of his character development. The mafia boss who once ruled without fear now finds himself afraid of losing the one person who matters most. Sophia, meanwhile, finally learns from an unexpected source that Ethan has been secretly trying to protect her. One of Ethan's trusted men approaches her and reveals that everything Ethan did, his silence, his distance, even his harsh behavior, was not because he stopped caring, but because he was trying to push her away for her safety. This revelation shakes Sophia deeply. Her heart begins to struggle between anger and understanding. She feels betrayed, but at the same time, she starts questioning whether she misunderstood Ethan's intentions. As emotions become more complicated, fate pushes them closer to another breaking point. The enemy group finally makes their move. One evening, Sophia is kidnapped while leaving the hospital. The operation is quick and precise, showing how deeply planned it was. The kidnappers leave no trace behind, making it nearly impossible for the police or hospital staff to understand what happened. Within hours, Ethan receives the news, and everything changes. The calm and controlled mafia leader disappears instantly. What remains is a man driven purely by fear and rage. For the first time, Ethan loses all control and launches a full-scale search operation. Every resource he owns is activated. Every enemy hideout becomes a target. The city that once feared him now witnesses something even more dangerous, a man fighting not for power, but for love. Sophia, trapped in an unknown location, finally begins to understand the reality of the world she has been pulled into. She is scared, but she refuses to break down. Instead, she gathers courage, remembering the strength Ethan once admired in her. Even in captivity, she does not give up hope. Deep inside, she feels that Ethan will come for her, no matter what. And in the shadows of the city, Ethan is already moving closer. His journey toward her rescue begins, not just as a mafia boss saving someone important, but as a man willing to destroy everything he built just to protect the woman he loves. This marks the beginning of a much more intense phase in the story, where love, betrayal, danger, and sacrifice are about to collide in ways neither of them could ever imagine. After Sophia's sudden kidnapping, the entire atmosphere of the story shifts into a full-scale, tension-driven rescue arc. The situation is no longer just about emotional misunderstandings between Ethan and Sophia. It has now become a direct war between Ethan Blake and the enemies who have been waiting for the perfect moment to strike him through the one person he cannot afford to lose. The city, already filled with hidden criminal networks, starts to feel unstable as Ethan activates his underground system of influence. Ethan does not waste even a single moment after receiving the kidnapping news. The calm, controlled businessman image he once maintained disappears completely. In its place stands the true identity of a mafia leader who has survived countless betrayals and wars. But this time, his actions are different. It is not just anger driving him. It is fear, something he has never allowed himself to feel before. The fear of losing Sophia completely changes the way he operates. Every decision becomes faster, more aggressive, and more personal. He immediately calls his most trusted inner circle, ordering them to lock down every exit route of the city. Airports, highways, abandoned industrial zones. Everything becomes part of a massive search grid. Ethan's intelligence network begins tracing unusual movements, scanning for any sign of the kidnappers. However, the enemy group is extremely organized. They deliberately avoid digital footprints, knowing Ethan's reach is powerful enough to track most systems. Meanwhile, Sophia is taken to a hidden location far outside the city. The place is an old industrial warehouse surrounded by abandoned land, far away from any civilian movement. The kidnappers finally reveal their intention to her. They do not want money. They do not want negotiation. Their goal is far more personal. They want to break Ethan Blake emotionally before destroying him physically. Sophia becomes the bait in a much larger revenge plan that has been building for years in the shadows of Ethan's mafia empire. Despite being scared, Sophia refuses to show weakness. She listens carefully to their conversation, slowly understanding that Ethan's world is far more dangerous than she ever imagined. But instead of breaking down completely, she starts observing her surroundings. She looks for escape opportunities, weak points in security, and timing patterns of the guards. Her nursing background and calm mindset help her stay focused under pressure, even in such a life-threatening situation. Back in the city, Ethan finally receives a lead. One of his surveillance teams detects an unusual vehicle route that matches the possible direction of the kidnappers. Without hesitation, he personally leads the operation. This is a rare move, as Ethan usually never enters direct field action unless absolutely necessary. But Sophia's situation forces him to break his own rules. As Ethan moves closer to the suspected location, flashbacks of his time with Sophia begin to appear in his mind. He remembers how she treated him when he was injured, how she trusted him without knowing his identity, and how her kindness slowly broke through his cold exterior. These memories strengthen his resolve even more. For Ethan, this is no longer just a rescue mission. It is a personal promise to bring her back safely, no matter the cost. Inside the warehouse, Sophia finally manages to create a small distraction. She intentionally drops a metal object to draw attention away from one side of the room. For a brief moment, the guards shift their focus. She uses this opportunity to move toward a partially open storage area. However, before she can fully escape, one of the kidnappers notices her movement. Tension rises instantly as the situation becomes more dangerous. Just when things seem to spiral out of control, a loud explosion echoes in the distance. The kidnappers panic, unsure of what is happening. Ethan has arrived. His team breaches the outer perimeter with precision, taking down guards one by one. The operation is swift, calculated, and extremely aggressive. Ethan moves ahead of everyone, ignoring safety protocols. His only focus is Sophia. The warehouse, once quiet and controlled, now becomes a battlefield filled with chaos. Sophia hears the sounds of conflict and immediately realizes what is happening. For the first time since her kidnapping, a sense of hope replaces fear. She knows Ethan is here. That realization gives her strength to keep moving forward despite the danger. As Ethan fights his way through the structure, he finally reaches the central area where Sophia is being held. Their eyes meet for a moment, an emotional silence in the middle of chaos. That brief moment carries everything they could not say to each other before: regret, fear, care, and unspoken love. But the situation is still not over. The main leader of the kidnappers appears, revealing that the entire setup was designed as a trap specifically for Ethan. The enemy tries to provoke him emotionally, forcing him to choose between saving Sophia or surviving the attack. However, Ethan does not hesitate. For him, the decision was already made the moment he entered the building. The confrontation intensifies, setting the stage for a final emotional and action-heavy sequence that will decide not only their survival, but also the future direction of their relationship. And at this point, both Ethan and Sophia finally begin to understand one truth clearly. No matter how far they try to stay apart, fate continues to pull them back into the same storm. The moment Ethan Blake steps fully into the central chamber of the warehouse, the entire atmosphere changes. The sound of gunfire outside slowly fades into the background, leaving only a tense silence between him, Sophia Carter, and the mastermind behind the kidnapping. The enemy leader stands confidently, as if everything is still under his control, even though his men are already being defeated outside. His expression carries arrogance, but also a hidden frustration because Ethan has arrived faster than expected. Sophia is standing at a distance, visibly shaken but still conscious and alert. Even in fear, she doesn't collapse emotionally. Instead, she keeps her eyes fixed on Ethan, as if his presence alone has changed the entire outcome of her situation. Ethan, on the other hand, does not look away from her even for a second. Every step he takes toward her is slow but determined, showing how deeply focused he is on bringing her out safely. The enemy leader starts speaking, trying to provoke Ethan emotionally. He reminds him of everything that has happened: his hidden identity, the broken trust between him and Sophia, and the chaos that followed after their marriage. His goal is simple: to break Ethan mentally before finishing him physically. He even suggests that Sophia was never truly safe with him, and that Ethan's presence is the reason she ended up in this situation. But Ethan does not react the way the enemy expects. Instead of anger or panic, his expression remains calm but extremely cold. There's a different kind of intensity in his eyes now, one that shows he is no longer interested in negotiation or fear. He only has one objective left: Sophia's safety. Everything else has become meaningless to him. Sophia, watching from a distance, slowly begins to realize something important. Despite all the lies, the secrets, and the pain between them, Ethan has never once stopped trying to protect her. Even when she pushed him away emotionally, even when she doubted him completely, he still came for her without hesitation. That realization creates a shift inside her heart. Confusion turns into understanding, and anger slowly weakens. The enemy leader signals his remaining guards to surround Ethan. A tense standoff begins inside the warehouse. Ethan is outnumbered, but his posture remains steady. His experience in the mafia world is clearly visible in the way he analyzes every movement around him. Within seconds, the situation explodes into another round of violent confrontation. Ethan moves with precision, taking down multiple attackers while still keeping his focus partially on Sophia's safety. Sophia, despite being in danger herself, starts looking for another escape opportunity. She notices that the guard closest to her is distracted by the fight. Carefully and quietly, she steps backward, trying to move toward a safer corner of the room. Her movements are slow, controlled, and cautious. She understands that one wrong move could trigger immediate retaliation. During the chaos, Ethan finally manages to reach closer to the enemy leader. A direct confrontation begins between them. Unlike the earlier fights, this one is more personal. The enemy speaks about revenge, betrayal, and long-standing hatred toward Ethan's empire. He claims that Ethan's entire life is built on blood and lies, and that Sophia is just another casualty of his world. But this time, Ethan responds. His voice is low but firm, and he finally breaks his silence. He makes it clear that whatever his past was, Sophia is not part of that darkness. She's the only person who represents something different in his life, something real, something he refuses to lose. This moment becomes emotionally powerful because it is the first time Ethan openly acknowledges what Sophia means to him, not just as someone he is protecting, but as someone he truly cares about. The enemy, frustrated by Ethan's emotional clarity, attempts a final move. He grabs a weapon and tries to aim it towards Sophia, hoping to force Ethan into a desperate reaction. But Ethan reacts instantly. Without hesitation, he rushes forward, stopping the attack just in time. The situation becomes extremely intense for a few seconds as everything hangs in balance. Sophia, now fully realizing the seriousness of the moment, calls out Ethan's name. That single moment creates a strong emotional connection between them, cutting through all the pain and misunderstanding that existed before. Ethan turns slightly toward her, making sure she is still safe, and that brief eye contact confirms everything they could not say earlier. The enemy leader is eventually disarmed and brought down by Ethan's remaining team members who arrive just in time. The immediate threat inside the warehouse is finally neutralized, but the emotional weight of what just happened remains. Silence slowly returns after the chaos. Sophia is safe but exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Ethan finally moves toward her, this time without hesitation. The distance between them, which had felt so heavy for so long, is now closing. And in that quiet moment after the storm, both of them begin to understand that this was not just a rescue. It was a turning point that will decide whether their broken trust can ever be rebuilt again. After the enemy threat inside the warehouse is finally neutralized, a heavy silence falls over the entire scene. The tension that filled the space just moments ago slowly fades, leaving behind dust, broken equipment, and the emotional weight of everything that has just happened. Sophia Carter is still standing near the corner of the room, her breathing uneven, her body exhausted from both fear and the stress of captivity. Even though she has been physically rescued, her mind is still processing everything that unfolded. Ethan Blake slowly walks toward her, his movements calm but careful. For the first time since entering the warehouse, there is no urgency in his steps. The danger is gone, but what remains is far more complicated, emotionally unresolved pain between them. He stops a short distance away, not immediately reaching out, as if he is afraid that any sudden action might push her away again. Sophia looks at him with mixed emotions. Her eyes reflect relief that he came for her, but also confusion and emotional conflict about everything she has learned. She remembers the truth about his identity, the secrets he kept, and the dangerous world he is part of. At the same time, she also remembers how he risked everything without hesitation to save her life. That contradiction creates a deep internal struggle within her heart. Ethan finally speaks, his voice low and controlled, but carrying a rare softness that was not present before. He does not try to justify everything at once. Instead, he simply acknowledges what has happened. He tells her that she has every right to be angry, every right to question him, and every right to walk away if she chooses to. For the first time, Ethan is not speaking like a mafia leader or someone used to control. He is speaking like someone who is afraid of losing the only person who has ever mattered to him emotionally. Sophia listens silently. Her expression does not change immediately, but her eyes begin to soften slightly. She is still hurt, but the situation has shifted her perspective. She realizes that despite everything, Ethan never abandoned her when it mattered the most. He came for her without hesitation, even when it meant putting his own life at risk. There's a long pause between them. Neither of them speaks for a few moments. This silence is not empty. It is full of unspoken emotions, unresolved misunderstandings, and the weight of everything they have been through. In this silence, both begin to reflect on how their relationship has reached this point. Ethan slowly takes off his coat and places it over Sophia's shoulders, not as a dramatic gesture, but as a quiet act of care. He notices that she is still physically shaken and slightly cold from the situation. This small action reminds Sophia of the earlier days when she first met him, when he was injured and she helped him without knowing who he truly was. That memory creates a strange, emotional connection between past and present. Sophia finally speaks, her voice soft but unstable. She asks him one simple question, not about his enemies, not about the kidnapping, but about the truth. She asks whether anything between them was ever real, or if it was all just part of his hidden world. This question carries all her pain, confusion, and fear of being emotionally used. Ethan's expression changes immediately. For a moment, he does not respond, as if choosing his words carefully. Then he answers honestly. He tells her that the only thing he never lied about was what he felt when he was with her. Everything else, his identity, his world, his past, was complicated and dangerous, but his feelings were never fake. He admits that meeting her changed something inside him that even he did not understand at first. Sophia listens quietly, but her emotions are still not fully resolved. She turns slightly away, struggling to process everything. Her heart is divided between trust and pain. She is not ready to forgive completely, but she is also no longer able to ignore the truth she just witnessed. Ethan risked everything for her without hesitation. Outside the warehouse, Ethan's team begins securing the area and preparing for departure. The immediate danger has passed, but Ethan knows that this incident will have long-term consequences. His enemies have been exposed, but not completely eliminated. More conflicts are likely to come in the future. However, at this moment, his focus is not on the mafia world or future threats. His focus is entirely on Sophia. He realizes that even though he saved her life physically, emotionally their relationship is still standing on unstable ground. Sophia finally begins walking slowly toward the exit, and Ethan follows a short distance, giving her space instead of forcing closeness. This subtle shift in his behavior shows growth in his character. He is no longer trying to control the situation, but instead respecting her emotional boundaries. As they leave the warehouse together, the night outside feels quieter, almost unreal compared to what just happened inside. The city lights in the distance remind them that life continues, but their lives have already changed permanently after this event. And at this point in the story, both Ethan and Sophia are standing at a turning point. The rescue has ended the physical danger, but a much deeper question now remains unresolved: whether trust, once completely broken, can ever truly be rebuilt again between them. After leaving the warehouse, the atmosphere around Ethan Blake and Sophia Carter becomes unusually quiet. The city night feels calm on the surface, but emotionally, both of them are still carrying the weight of everything that just happened. The convoy moves slowly through the empty roads, escorted by Ethan's men, but there is no conversation inside the vehicle. The silence between Ethan and Sophia is different this time. It is not anger anymore, but uncertainty mixed with emotional exhaustion. Sophia sits near the window, her gaze fixed outside, watching the passing lights. Her body is safe now, but her mind is still trapped in the chaos of recent events. She replays everything in her thoughts: the kidnapping, Ethan's arrival, the fight, and the moment he risked his life without hesitation. Each memory brings a different emotion: fear, relief, confusion, and a strange sense of connection she is not ready to admit yet. Ethan sits beside her, but he does not try to start a conversation immediately. For the first time, he understands that forcing words will only push her further away. Instead, he quietly observes her condition, making sure she is physically fine. His usual cold and commanding presence is replaced by something more restrained and human. He is still a mafia leader by identity, but right now, he is simply a man worried about someone he deeply cares about. After some time, The convoy reaches a secured private residence owned by Ethan. It is not a mansion meant for luxury display. It is a hidden safe house used for emergency situations. The security is tight, and the environment is isolated from the outside world. Sophia is guided inside carefully, and a medical team is already waiting to check her condition. She allows them to treat her minor injuries, but her mind remains distant, as if she is not fully present in the moment. Ethan stands at a distance while everything is being done. He does not interfere, but he does not leave either. His eyes remain on Sophia the entire time, silently ensuring she is okay. Once the doctors finish their checkup and confirm she is stable, the room slowly becomes empty again, leaving just the two of them inside a quiet space. This moment creates another emotional pause between them. There are no enemies, no chaos, no immediate danger. Just two people standing in front of a truth they can no longer avoid. Sophia finally turns toward Ethan, her expression calmer than before, but still carrying emotional weight. She asks him why he didn't tell her everything from the beginning. Her voice is not angry this time, but deeply tired. It is the voice of someone who has gone through too much in a very short time. Ethan takes a slow breath before answering. He explains that his world is not something easy to reveal. In his life, truth often becomes a weapon, and people close to him are always at risk. He admits that hiding his identity was not meant to deceive her personally, but to keep her safe from the dangers attached to him. Sophia listens without interrupting, but her expression shows that understanding the reason does not completely erase the emotional damage. She tells him that even if his intention was protection, the results still hurt her deeply. She trusted him without conditions, and discovering the truth the way she did broke something inside her. Ethan accepts her words without defense. For the first time, he does not try to justify or control the conversation. Instead, he acknowledges her pain fully. This is a significant shift in his character. He is no longer behaving like someone used to commanding situations, but like someone willing to accept emotional consequences. A long silence follows again. This time, however, it is not as heavy as before. There is still distance between them, but there is also a small trace of understanding forming underneath the tension. Sophia slowly sits down, clearly exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Ethan takes a step forward, then stops, as if unsure whether he is allowed to come closer. Sophia notices this hesitation. After a moment, she tells him quietly that she does not hate him, but she also cannot pretend everything is normal. This simple statement carries a lot of emotional complexity. It is not forgiveness, but it is also not rejection. It is a boundary, a pause between two broken emotional states. Ethan nods slightly, accepting her words without resistance. He tells her that he will not force anything from her, not trust, not forgiveness, not even closeness. He says that for the first time, he just wants her to be safe, even if she chooses distance from him. This moment marks another subtle shift in their relationship. The power dynamic between them is no longer about control or misunderstanding. Instead, it is about emotional space and silent respect. Outside the safe house, Ethan's men continue handling the aftermath of the kidnapping incident. Reports are coming in that the enemy group responsible is beginning to scatter. However, Ethan knows this is not the end. It is only the beginning of a larger conflict that will eventually return. But inside the room, none of that matters at this moment. For Sophia, the biggest struggle is no longer survival. It is understanding her own feelings. She realizes that despite everything, Ethan did not abandon her. He came for her when it mattered most. And for Ethan, the biggest struggle is not defeating enemies. It is learning how to protect someone without destroying the emotional bond he is trying to rebuild. And so, in this quiet aftermath, both of them stand at the edge of something uncertain. Not separation, not reconciliation, but a fragile, unfinished space where trust might slowly begin to rebuild, if given time. The atmosphere inside the safe house remains quiet after the emotional exchange between Ethan Blake and Sophia Carter. The tension has lowered, but an emotional distance still exists between them. Neither of them is able to act completely normal after everything they've gone through. The events of the kidnapping, the rescue, and the truth about Ethan's identity have created a permanent shift in their relationship. Sophia remains seated near the window, wrapped in the coat Ethan gave her earlier. She is physically safe, but her mind is still processing the emotional storm. Every now and then, she glances at Ethan without directly making eye contact. There is confusion in her expression. She is trying to understand what she truly feels. The pain of betrayal still exists, but is now mixed with gratitude for being saved. Ethan stands near the door of the room, quietly observing her. He does not approach her, respecting the emotional boundary she has set. For the first time in his life, he is not trying to control a situation. Instead, he is simply waiting, accepting that he cannot fix everything immediately. His usual dominance is replaced with patience, something unfamiliar to him but necessary in this moment. After a long silence, Sophia finally speaks again. Her voice is softer than before, but still uncertain. She asks Ethan what will happen next. Not just about the mafia world, but about them. This question reflects her inner conflict. She no longer wants chaos, but she also cannot return to how things were before. Ethan takes a moment before answering. He admits that his world is dangerous and complicated, and it will not disappear overnight. He tells her that there are still enemies out there who will try to target him, and anyone close to him will always be at risk. However, he also says something different this time. He says he is willing to change how he handles things if it means reducing the danger around her. This statement surprises Sophia slightly. She realizes that Ethan is no longer speaking like a man trapped in power, but like someone who is considering change for the first time. Still, she remains cautious. She tells him that words are not enough anymore. She needs time to understand whether any of this can truly be trusted again. Ethan nods in agreement without arguing. He understands that trust is not something he can demand. It must be rebuilt slowly, if at all possible. He tells her that he will not force her to stay close to him or make any decisions under pressure. This marks another important emotional shift in his character. The mafia leader who once commanded fear is now choosing restraint over control. Later, a doctor comes in again to check on Sophia's condition. She is physically fine, only slightly exhausted from stress. After confirming this, the medical staff leaves the room, and silence returns once more. Ethan is informed that Sophia needs rest, but he does not leave immediately. Instead, he stays outside the room, ensuring security is maintained around the house. Inside, Sophia lies down for a short rest, but she does not fully sleep. Her mind continues to replay moments from the past few days. She remembers Ethan saving her, his expression during the fight, and the way he looked at her without hesitation. These memories begin to soften her emotional resistance, even if she does not fully accept it yet. Outside the room, Ethan receives a report from his men. The enemy group responsible for the kidnapping has begun retreating, but some members are still active. There is a warning that they may attempt another move in the future. Ethan listens carefully, his expression turning serious again. The mafia world is still active, still dangerous, and still unpredictable. However, this time his priority is different. Instead of preparing for immediate retaliation, he instructs his team to strengthen protection around Sophia quietly and avoid unnecessary exposure. He also gives a strict order not to involve her directly in any future conflicts. This shows that his focus has shifted entirely toward her safety, even at the cost of his own control over the situation. As night progresses, the safe house remains calm. Sophia eventually falls into a light sleep, exhausted from everything she has endured. Ethan stands outside her room for a long time, not entering, simply keeping watch. His thoughts are no longer about power or enemies. They're centered on one question: whether the distance growing between them is temporary or permanent. In that quiet moment, Ethan realizes something important. For the first time in his life, winning a battle does not feel complete. Even though he saved Sophia physically, emotionally, he still feels like he is losing something far more valuable. And Sophia, even in her rest, begins to slowly understand that the man she once feared and trusted at the same time is not simply a mafia boss, but someone who is struggling just as much as she is to find a way forward. This becomes the turning point where their story moves away from survival and conflict and slowly begins entering a more fragile stage of emotional uncertainty, where healing or separation both remain possible. The night deepens around the safe house, and a calm silence settles over the entire environment. After hours of tension, chaos, and emotional exhaustion, everything finally appears still. But inside that stillness, both Ethan Blake and Sophia Carter are dealing with emotions that are far from peaceful. Sophia is resting in the room, though her sleep is light and unstable. Every few minutes, she stirs slightly as fragments of recent events continue to replay in her mind. The kidnapping, Ethan's rescue, the fight, and his words all blend together in a confusing emotional mix. Even though her body is recovering, her heart remains unsettled. She is trying to understand where she truly stands now, between trust, fear, and something she's not ready to name yet. Outside the room, Ethan remains in the same position. He has not moved much since she fell asleep. His men have updated him that the enemy group has temporarily scattered, but the threat is not completely gone. Still, Ethan does not show urgency toward revenge or retaliation at this moment. Instead, his focus stays fixed on the closed door of Sophia's room. For the first time in his life, he is not thinking like a mafia leader planning his next move. He is thinking like someone who is afraid of losing a person emotionally, even after physically saving her. That realization weighs heavily on him. He has fought wars, survived betrayals, and eliminated threats without hesitation. But none of those situations ever made him feel this uncertain. Inside the room, Sophia slowly wakes up again. She sits up quietly, noticing the faint light from outside. After a moment of hesitation, she walks toward the door and opens it slightly. When she steps outside, she finds Ethan still there, standing guard. Their eyes meet briefly, but neither speaks immediately. There's a long pause between them. This silence is different from before. It is no longer filled with anger or panic. It is filled with emotional hesitation. Sophia finally breaks the silence by asking him why he is still standing there. Her voice is calm, but there is curiosity behind it. Ethan responds simply. He says he wanted to make sure she was safe. Nothing more, nothing less. There is no dramatic explanation, no emotional speech, just honesty. This simplicity surprises Sophia slightly because she is used to Ethan either controlling situations or hiding behind silence. But now, he is being straightforward. Sophia looks at him for a few seconds. Then she tells him that she does not need protection every second, especially when she's already safe inside a secure place. Her tone is not harsh, but it carries emotional distance. Ethan listens without interrupting. After a moment, he replies that he knows she is safe physically, but he is not sure about everything else, especially what she feels. This statement creates another emotional pause between them. Sophia lowers her gaze slightly because she understands exactly what he means. She admits quietly that she is still confused. She does not know whether she should be angry, grateful, or distant. Everything inside her feels mixed and unstable. For the first time, she openly expresses her emotional conflict instead of hiding it. Ethan listens carefully, without trying to correct or explain anything. He simply acknowledges her feelings. He tells her that he will not rush her or expect her to decide anything immediately. He says that whatever she feels is valid, even if it means distance between them. This moment becomes important because it shows a change in both of them. Sophia is no longer reacting only with anger, and Ethan is no longer trying to control emotional outcomes. Instead, both are slowly entering a phase of acceptance, uncertain but real. After a brief silence, Sophia asks him something unexpected. She asks him what he would have done if he had arrived too late, if she had been harmed before he reached her. This question is soft but emotionally deep. Ethan pauses for a moment before answering. His expression changes slightly, and for the first time, His voice carries something heavier than usual control. He says that he would not have forgiven himself. Not the enemies, not the situation, himself. That honest answer reveals a side of him Sophia has never fully seen before: vulnerability. Sophia listens quietly. She notices that beneath everything, the mafia identity, the power, the danger, there's a person who is capable of deep emotional attachment. This realization does not remove her pain, but it slowly begins to shift her perception of him. A light wind passes through the open space outside the room. The night feels quieter now, almost distant from everything they have experienced. Sophia finally steps back slightly, creating a bit more distance between them, not out of rejection, but because she still needs time. Ethan respects that and does not move closer. Before turning away, Sophia says something simple but important. She tells him that she needs time, not promises. Ethan nods in response, accepting it without resistance. As she returns to her room, the door closes softly behind her. Ethan remains outside for a few more moments, standing alone in silence. The danger around them may have temporarily reduced, but emotionally, everything is still unsettled. And at this point in the story, both of them begin to understand that survival was only the first challenge. The real struggle now is whether trust, once completely broken, can ever be rebuilt again. After the emotionally heavy night at the safe house, the morning arrives with a quiet, almost unreal calmness. Sunlight slowly enters through the windows, softening the dark atmosphere that had surrounded Ethan Blake and Sophia Carter for so long. But even with the change of time, nothing inside their emotional world feels fully settled yet. The distance between them still exists, just in a quieter, more delicate form now. Sophia wakes up earlier than expected. She sits near the edge of the bed for a few moments, taking a deep breath as she tries to steady her thoughts. The events of the past days still feel overwhelming, but there's a slight difference in her emotional state today. The panic has reduced, and in its place is reflection. She is no longer reacting only with fear or anger. She is thinking, questioning, and slowly trying to understand everything from a broader perspective. Outside her room, Ethan is already awake. He has been working through reports from his organization since early morning. The situation with his enemies is still unstable, and his empire requires attention. However, even while dealing with serious mafia matters, his focus keeps shifting back to Sophia's condition. It is clear that his priorities have changed, even if the world around him has not. One of his trusted men reports that the rival group responsible for the kidnapping is now under pressure and retreating. Some of their operations have been exposed, and internal chaos is beginning to spread among them. This gives Ethan temporary relief, but he knows very well that in the mafia world, retaliation never fully disappears. It only waits for the right moment. Despite this, Ethan does not plan any immediate counterattack. Instead, he instructs his team to avoid escalation and maintain defensive control only. This decision surprises even his closest members, as Ethan is usually known for direct and decisive retaliation. But now, his approach is different, more cautious, more controlled, and surprisingly more focused on reducing unnecessary danger. Inside the safe house, Sophia eventually steps out of her room. When she enters the main area, she notices Ethan speaking with his men in the distance. He ends the conversation once he sees her, immediately dismissing the others so she is not surrounded by any unfamiliar presence. This small action shows that he is still prioritizing her comfort and emotional space. A quiet moment passes as they both stand in the same space again. The tension is no longer sharp, but it is still present in the background. Sophia looks at him, then breaks the silence by asking what is happening outside, whether everything is over or if danger is still present. Ethan explains honestly that the situation is under control for now, but not completely finished. He avoids unnecessary details to prevent her from becoming more stressed. He tells her that she is safe here, and there is no immediate threat inside the safe house. Sophia listens carefully, then nods slightly. She is not fully comfortable yet, but she's also no longer overwhelmed by fear. After a brief pause, she asks him what he plans to do next regarding everything that has happened. Not just the enemies, but them as well. This question creates a deeper silence. Ethan takes a moment before responding. He admits that he cannot undo what happened between them. He cannot erase his identity or the life he has lived. But he also says that he is not willing to lose her completely just because of his past. His voice is calm, but there is seriousness behind it. He is not asking for forgiveness or immediate acceptance. He is simply being honest about where he stands emotionally. Sophia listens without interrupting. For the first time, she does not immediately reject or accept his words. Instead, she processes them quietly. There is still pain inside her, but also a growing awareness that Ethan is not trying to manipulate or control her anymore. He is simply being transparent, even if the truth is complicated. After a moment, she tells him that she still needs time to think clearly. She says she cannot make emotional decisions while everything still feels unstable. Ethan responds by saying he understands and that he will not pressure her. This exchange, though simple, marks a subtle shift. There is no longer emotional confrontation between them, only distance, honesty, and hesitation. Later in the day, Sophia spends some time alone inside the safe house. She looks out of the window, observing the outside surroundings. Her thoughts are calmer than before, but deeper. She begins to question not just Ethan's actions, but also her own feelings. She remembers how she trusted him without knowing the truth, and how that trust was broken. But she also remembers how he risked everything to save her without hesitation. This conflict creates a complicated emotional space inside her. She realizes that her feelings are no longer one-dimensional. They are mixed with hurt, understanding, fear, and something she is not ready to fully define yet. Meanwhile, Ethan continues handling responsibilities outside, but he keeps returning at intervals to check on her situation. He does not invade her space, but he does not distance himself completely either. It is a careful balance, giving her freedom while still ensuring she is protected. As the day moves forward, both of them slowly begin to settle into a new kind of reality. Not separation, not reconciliation, but something in between. A fragile stage where emotions are no longer explosive, but still unresolved. And in this quiet phase of the story, one truth becomes clear for both of them. Whatever happens next will not be decided by survival or danger, but by whether trust can slowly grow again in a space that was once completely broken. As the final battle reaches its peak, Ethan stands alone in front of his enemies, his body injured but his determination unbreakable. The warehouse echoes with silence before chaos breaks out again. Every step he takes is filled with pain, but his focus is only on one thing: protecting Sophia at any cost. His enemies try to break him emotionally, reminding him of his past, his blood-stained life, and the world he once ruled. But Ethan is no longer the same man. Sophia changed him completely. She became the reason he started believing in peace, love, and a life beyond violence. On the other side, Sophia is held captive, watching helplessly as Ethan risks everything for her. Her heart trembles as she realizes how far he has come just to save her. The man she once feared, the man she once misunderstood, is now standing between life and death for her sake alone. This moment breaks something inside her. She finally understands that Ethan's love was never fake. It was real from the very beginning, even when he didn't know how to express it. Ethan fights his way through the final group of enemies, refusing to give up even when he is outnumbered. In a powerful emotional moment, he finally reaches Sophia. Their eyes meet, and for a second, everything becomes silent again. He frees her, despite being severely injured. But just when it seems like they're finally safe, the main antagonist makes a desperate move, trying to attack them both. In a shocking twist, Ethan shields Sophia with his own body. The impact leaves him critically injured, collapsing in front of her. Sophia screams his name, holding him tightly, refusing to let him go. For the first time, Ethan shows a soft smile, one filled with peace rather than pain. He tells her that meeting her was the only right decision of his life. Even if he lived a life full of darkness, she was his only light. The enemies are finally defeated as reinforcements arrive, ending the violent cycle once and for all. Ethan is rushed away, and for a moment, his fate seems uncertain. Days later, he slowly recovers, proving his strength once again. Sophia stays by his side every single day, never leaving him alone. Their bond grows even deeper during this healing phase, built on truth, trust, and unconditional love. Eventually, Ethan makes a final decision. He officially leaves behind the mafia world, cutting all ties with his past life. He surrenders his power and chooses a peaceful future. This time, not as a mafia boss, not as a feared man, but as someone who simply wants to live a normal life with the woman he loves. The movie ends on a peaceful note as Ethan and Sophia start a new journey together. No secrets, no fear, no hidden identity, only honesty and love. They move away from the city, leaving behind everything painful, and begin a quiet life filled with hope. In the final scene, Sophia looks at Ethan and smiles, finally free from the confusion and fear that once surrounded her. Ethan holds her hand tightly, knowing that no matter how dark his past was, his future is now bright because of her.